Righty, all righty. So, welcome to another episode of the Published Creator Podcast. I am really excited about today's guest because we're going to talk about children's books. Now, if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that as of recently, this podcast was called The Coloring Book Creator. I've recently rebranded it to the Published Creator Podcast. But I'm sharing that with you because a couple of my students and members of my Coloring Book Creator program actually have published and created several children's books. So while I've never taught on that or dedicated to that, I really didn't know that there was anyone out there that just focused exclusively on children's books the way I focus on coloring books until I met today's guest, Micaela Benn. So, I'm sure I'm pronouncing your last name correct. Is it Ben or Bean?
Ben, it's always the hard part is the first name. It's Michaela.
Micaela.
Yes.
Thank you for correcting me. Micaela Ben.
Yes.
Micaela Ben. All right. Thank you. So, what I wanted to do was when let me back it up for a second. She and I are both in a mutual school community. She and I both have school communities. And we met that way. She followed my school community, and I in turn followed hers. And we just immediately started having conversations and hit it off like immediately. Like we were just like peanut butter and chocolate. And and it was just is a perfect synergy. And so while I don't focus my quote unquote training and so forth around the subject of children's books, or what I'm going to even label as illustrated books, I knew that Micaela was someone that had the backing, the skills, the knowledge in the areas of specialty that I just don't have. Because while I can learn everything, I don't want to learn everything. I don't need to learn everything. There's other people out there that can learn other things. I've got my lane. Everyone's got their lane. So I wanted to bring Micaela on because this is something that many people are considering even as a companion, possibly to a written book, if you wish. It also can be a companion to a coloring book, if you wish. So there's a lot to unpack here, but I wanted just to bring this to you as an option if you are considering, because again, the published creator can be coloring book, activity book, journal, planner. It can be a children's or illustrated book. It could also be a written book. It's all around being published around your talent, your skills, your abilities, your passions. And as long as there is an audience and a market for what it is that you do, why not? Why not have that in there as well? So, first of all, Michaela, thank you so much for joining me today. And how are you?
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Rodney. I'm so glad to be here. And I'm so thankful that you and I got a chance to meet in the school communities because otherwise I wouldn't have known that there was someone who focuses on coloring books the way that I focus on children's books.
You I know. Isn't it wild? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really you and I had a conversation last week about this subject, and it's interesting, when we think about someone creating a book, we think about a written book, and we think, well, that's the only, and maybe, I shouldn't say we think, maybe some of the assumption is that the only books that make money are books that are written books. And I have no doubt in my mind that there is, some truth to that. But don't assume anything
right.
because there is tremendous opportunity in illustrated books, in activity books. I have seen my clients and students do things that they brought ideas and concepts to me that I hadn't even thought about, as I shared with you privately. And you've also shared with me. I actually met one of your students who actually was on one of my calls recently. I can't remember her last name, but Dana, I think is her first name. And she created a book with you, I think with you, around her adoption story around her son that she adopted many years ago. And that was such an in-depth conversation that we had, and she shared a lot of revelation around it. It was just a
Yes.
really, I just say to anybody, don't assume anything, but if it's on your heart to do a book, whether it's activity, illustrated, coloring, written book, or all of the above.
Yeah.
All the above. Meet people where they are because you don't, I mean, people might read, but they might want to color or they might want to read it in an illustrated form. Publishing is publishing. The medium in which we choose is all about being of service to our clientele.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a form of self-expression that you don't even realize has a genre
Hmm.
that others are creating for. And sometimes if you just peruse bookstores and
Hmm.
you find books that don't seem to fit anywhere, but they've got color illustrations, they've got a vibe to it that resonates with you, but it's somewhat of an activity book. They
Hmm.
are running out of ways to label these in traditional genre
Yeah.
context. So sometimes you just have to be in trust and in tune with what you want to create.
Hmm.
And even if it doesn't exist already, that doesn't mean that you're not supposed to create
Exactly.
it. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. So let's get right into it. Tell us
sure.
about yourself. How did you get started with, and specifically with children's books? What were you doing before, and then what was the impetus to starting this?
Oh, wow. Well, before and even presently, I am a marketing professional. All of my experience, all of my corporate engagement is in product management and in every facet of marketing, from market research and analysis to branding and content creation. Every aspect of marketing at some point in my career corporately I touched. And I think what really drew me to just being able to write is that I've always been a writer. So when it became time for me to express myself in
Mhm.
a way that would involve a mode that directly affects children, it was because I became a mom. I had only ever published one other children's book before, and it was my first when I was in first grade. But writing is something that I always gravitated toward, whether it was through journaling or through creative short stories. So for me, writing was a natural way to say what was on my mind. And during the time of political unrest and all of the things that were happening to shift the conversation in 2020, I was the mother of a 3-year-old. So I very well couldn't go out into the streets here in Metro Atlanta and protest and say what was on my mind the way I really wanted to out in public. But I did have another way that I wanted to introduce something that was important to me, and that was through my pen. And that was how I wrote my first children's book. That was not supposed to turn into what it turned into, but it blossomed. And here we are today on the other side of the Children's Book Marketing Podcast, the Children's Book Marketing Academy, which both help to give children's book authors the marketing, sales, distribution, and all of the strategies that help them reach more readers and sell more books. And now recently, the Children's Book Marketing Lab inside of the Skool community that we are connected through.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question. So for someone who is thinking about creating a children's book, does it start with, in your experience, does it start with the story, or
Mhm.
does it start with the art work, the images, or is it a combination? And have you seen a pattern between some of the people who have come to you for support?
Good question. I think it depends from which perspective you're a creator. So, in my experience, I had a story that I couldn't wait to write. I
Mm.
got out of the shower one day, it was a Thursday, and while I was in the shower, which is where I get all of my best ideas, I had the idea for the story.
Okay.
Within 45 minutes, I had written the first version of the rough draft, the merchandising and marketing plans, had a sketch, and I didn't have a clue what it was supposed to look like.
Okay. Okay.
If I was someone who drew instead of wrote, I might have seen it the opposite way
Mm.
and had in mind what these characters looked like. Now, because art In my case, it's somewhat of an imitation of life. The inspiration for my children's book was right in front of me and from people who I have personal relationships with. So there were some ideas of what it was supposed to look like,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't become apparent until I connected with my illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
That was when the magic started to happen. And in the children's book arena, because we're working with people who don't necessarily understand all of the words that are on the page, or who might understand some of the letters and they're still coming into what it means to formulate words, we have
Mm-hmm.
to be able to bring something to life without the text. So being able to express the view that a child should have and what I've identified as what story I want to tell is largely on the illustrator. So it's a really important synergistic relationship between illustrator and author. And I don't take it as lightly that that's probably in the process of creating a children's book,
Mm-hmm.
your biggest advocate and the person that you're going to spend the most time with
Mm-hmm.
throughout that production.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's an illustrator. And I guess a lot of that too would depend upon the individual. I mean, if you are someone who would construe yourself as a visual artist, you would probably start with the illustration. But even with that, well, maybe, maybe not. It depends. But I would say on some level, well, I shouldn't say on every level, everything starts with a story.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everything starts with a story. And so whether it's a film, whether it turns into a film or a photograph or a painting or or a hand drawing, there has to be something there in order for you to be able to express, oh, excuse me, or to express it out visually. So,
Yes.
um, yeah, I would say that for someone who is listening, let me ask you this question based on your
Hmm.
experience. Where do you feel that good stories come from?
Hmm. They can come from so many places, Rodney. Good stories can come from touch points of
Hmm.
your past, things that you may have wanted to read about
Hmm.
when you were a child that no one had the foresight to put into a book.
Hmm.
Good stories can come from family members passing them down,
Hmm.
where you've heard of someone in your family who did something.
Hmm.
And if you were privy to witnessing it yourself, you have your own perspective and how that story should go.
Hmm. Hmm.
Another place that good stories come from is when you are entirely a creative through and through, and you just have to find a way to put into words something that you see in your mind's eye. That's a great place for stories to come from. And when you don't have a vantage point at all, you just make it up.
Hmm.
It's usually formulated from bits and pieces of who you are and what you've seen or what you want or what you like or what you're missing. And so that's what makes the magic come to happen when you're just an authentic storyteller.
Hmm. Hmm.
Think of the novels that you've read and you wonder, where does somebody get the idea for this?
Yes.
Right now, we're in the Harry Potter series because my son is 8 years old now. He was 3 when I wrote the children's book, but he's advanced in his reading. And so we have to find stories that align with his maturity level,
Right.
that are also the right material to help invoke his imagination. And so we're in the Harry Potter series right now because we're into chapter books. And I'm constantly wondering who comes up with this stuff? Where do you find these different elements of magic? It's truly a gift to create a character from an arc that may never have existed before or
Hmm.
may be inspired by something. So I think
Hmm.
good stories can come from so many different places.
Hmm. Hmm.
Really good stories, and I wouldn't say that there's any shortage of these, come from historic context as well.
mm,
where we have bits and pieces of things that we might have heard about something or someone, or you've been introduced to an autobiography and you want to explore further what
mm,
that meant at that particular time in history.
mm,
And if you have a narrative that you want to create or one that you want to follow, making it front and center for people who've never heard of it before is always a great place to take it. And I'll mention the author that you were referring to. She is someone whose story is derived from word passed down from her mother, from
mm,
an experience that her mother had with her grandfather,
mm,
the author's grandfather. She never had a chance to meet her. And although she never got a chance to meet her, she's been told over and over what it was like at that time in the 1920s and 1930s when her grandfather was the business owner of a place that a lot of people at that point in time in Louisiana weren't given an opportunity to even walk and set foot through the doors. So,
mm,
yeah, it can come from so many different places.
mhm, mhm. You know, you made me think about something. It's something that I really don't think about a whole lot. Not that it was a bad experience, but years ago, I actually started writing a novel. I was really inspired by a novelist that I followed quite intensely.
Hmm.
And I was always inspired by his work. So I tried to write this novel. I put it away, never, did anything more with it. This was years ago. But I remember hearing somewhere, it was around that time in the 90s when you had writers like Eric Jerome Dickey and
Hmm.
Terry McMillan. And that was during that heyday time when, especially around our culture,
Yeah.
these authors were really just like, just, I mean, it was a Black author. Like every time you looked up, there was someone new putting out a novel. And I remember I met Terry McMillan at a book signing in San Francisco, where I was living at the time.
Hmm.
And I remember her saying, because we asked the question, well, where do the characters come from? How do you come with your characters? And she shared that she takes a job application form and she writes out a job application for the character so that she knows who they are, what age or what education background do they have, where their work experience, what do they do. I thought I never ever forgot that. I thought that was such
Interesting.
interesting way to get sort of the now that was her process
Hmm.
to get that sort of uh to make them more um like real
Yeah.
to her. And then once, and I heard another author piggyback on that same subject or that same ideology, was that as you're in the writing process, at least it was for me,
Hmm.
you're in the writing process, the character begins to tell you the story it wants you to write,
I can see that. I can entirely see that. Yes.
you know?
The characters for my children's book were distinct. They were a combination of people and personalities that I actually know.
Hmm.
The children's book is called Little Mr. Fix-It Assists with the To-Do List. And it's about a little boy who's helping his father complete a list of home improvement projects.
Hmm.
And because I could clearly see that glance of adoration between my son and his father,
Hmm.
and I could relate that same likeness to how I was with my grandfather
Hmm.
and my stepfather.
Hmm.
The character who was the dad became someone who was ambiguous between three people that I know that are
Hmm.
instrumental in my life.
Hmm.
And because there are traits among the three of them that meld together,
Hmm. Hmm.
it wasn't in any way challenging for me to identify what this personality was like. But there
Hmm.
are some things that I purposely left open. And I did this because I wanted to leave space for more to share,
Hmm.
even if it didn't come in the form of the storybook. So one of those things that I did was left his dress purposely ambiguous. He's blue collar, but you can't tell if he's an electrician, if he's a plumber, if he's a mechanic. You can't tell exactly who he is, but you can tell that he's somebody who works hard and looks forward to spending time with his child. I got that from all three of these people who are in my life. That's intentionally left open so that the resources that support the story can inform children in ways that help build their understanding and social awareness. So I'm able to establish linkages between who my main characters are and what my children's audience of readers is interested in understanding. So they're interested in understanding about different professionals. I purposely didn't make Mr. Jefferson the main character. I'll show you what I mean. I purposely did not make him say, "Oh, I am this professional," so that kids could look at this book and they could look at it and see, "Oh, he's dressed like my uncle,"
Right.
or "He's dressed like the man who I see who picks up the trash each week," or "He's
Mhm.
someone who I remember walking past. I
Mhm.
wonder what he does." Well, I can bring to life those professions in a way that if I just made him, I don't know, one or the other, I wouldn't easily be able to make that pivot for him.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Some parts of writing your children's book and your characters have to be open to where you want to take it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there's not a restriction on where you want to take it if you have it identify what you think people need to know.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting conversation we're having around this. Like I said, I've never even thought about an illustrated or children's book in particular, and I always wonder. Was
Hmm.
why I asked the question: does the art come first, or does the story come first? But I think I personally believe, as a writer myself, is that there has to be some. It's like a screenplay. Before you can
Yeah.
make a film, you've got to know who the character is, whether it's human or animal.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I have one of my client students. She's really big on animal advocacy, especially around no-kill shelters.
Hmm.
And she created a character for a dog named Gracie. And the story shows, and the story is Gracie being chosen, adopted, and
Hmm.
then the story is illustrating her from being inside the shelter to families coming in looking at her, and she's looking back at them, wondering if someone going to adopt her. Then the
Oh,
process of adopting her and then taking her home, and there's a picture of her in the backseat of the car with the window rolled down and their heads hanging out with the tongue, kind of a thing,
yes.
and then being in the new family and just the whole nine yards. And that book has just, I mean, she's very, very active in her community in that respect.
Hmm.
And people know her and know that's what she's about. So when the book was done and she did her first sort of fair or some kind of a local event, which she's a really brilliant marketer, because I want to switch gears and start talking about that.
Hmm.
When she started the marketing process, the book just sold out. I think she brought 60 copies with her and sold out. And the pouring of people coming back to her saying how much they loved that story and connecting to that one character, Gracie. You never really saw anyone else. It was all
Yeah.
Gracie's story. And she didn't anticipate, I don't think, the reaction that she got, but people were just like so invested
Yeah.
in this story and in this character. And it's opened up a whole new world for her. So
Yes.
um yeah, I didn't know if you had any similar experiences like that with some of your clients or with your own book or what have you, when
Oh,
people are just
yeah.
so invested in it that they just go, when's the next one coming out? Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I had. I'll speak on one that was related to my children's book, and I'll share one that relates to a client of mine. So the first time, I didn't even know what to make of this. The first time somebody had a reaction to my children's book that I didn't anticipate was after a podcast workshop that I was in. And the gentleman who led the workshop, we spoke after and like, hey, I'm Micaela Benn, host of the Children's Book Marketing Podcast. And I told him what I was doing at the conference and what I was looking for. And he said, well, children's book marketing. So you only talk to children's book authors? I said, yes, I really only talk to people who are interested in publishing children's books. And I'm really intentional about this niche because this is a unique genre and how we have to create our books and how the art and the manuscript work together and come together in a published format is not the same as when you publish a novel or when you publish a nonfiction book. And neither are the opportunities for revenue generation and impact. So he says, well, what's your children's book about? I told him what my children's book was about and I shared it with him. And when he saw the cover, Rodney, he cried. He
Oh,
was in tears. And I asked him why this particular image on the cover resonated with him so much. And he said, I can see my father teaching me how to fix things in our garage when I see these two characters that you have on the cover.
wow.
And I was blown away because he's a man who doesn't have any children. And that he saw himself in the story was something I wasn't prepared for.
Mhm,
Usually, I'm sharing the book with people who have children or who are in front of children frequently, and they see how a child might respond. But this was the first time that ever happened. It wasn't the only time.
mhm,
Somebody said they saw themselves in the
mhm,
characters. I've had it also when children. Oh man, I think I put this on my TikTok. I'll share my TikTok with you because that's where I communicate mostly about my children's books. The Instagram account is more for those in the community who want to understand the marketing and the sales behind it. But the
mhm,
TikTok is where I put things that relates to me as an author. And there was this really adorable little boy sitting in the back seat of his parents' vehicle. And one of the parents is talking to him, and he's got the book on his lap, the book's bigger than him.
mhm,
And the father is sitting with him. And the mother says, so what do you think about this book? He said, I see myself.
um,
That was when the light bulb went off.
yes.
It resonates with children in a way that it also resonates with adults. And that's how you know there's something special about your story. And I don't think what your author experienced with selling out the books and having people come back is uncommon because the way people feel about memories and the way people feel about what stirs an emotion is unique. And if a children's book has the capacity to do that, the power is in the reaction,
Mhm,
not just the response,
mhm,
not just the testimonial. It's in the person's first mind and what they say
mhm,
they feel when they see it. So
mhm,
I'm not negating the significance of testimonials or
mhm,
accounts of how the book has gone, but when you get that authenticity, you know you hit the mark. And people create children's books for so many different reasons that here's another example. Like you don't even have to have children to have a children's book in you. And so one of my children's book authors is an educator. A lot of them are because they are around kids all the time, but not all of them have children. And this particular educator doesn't have a child.
mhm,
His book is about experiences where children have their first time doing something. And so his first book was about kids' first day at school because he can relate to that. He can relate to the anxiety that a child is experiencing standing at the doorway to be welcomed in. And he can relate to the uncertainty of whether or not a child wants to go back on the second day. And so all of the emotions that somebody might feel, he captures in his first book in such a beautiful way that's genuine to what kids experience because everybody doesn't show up at school on the first day like, hey, I'm happy to be here. I can't wait to start learning.
Oh, I know, I know. I was the same way. You made me think back when I had my first day at school. I skipped kindergarten and went
Yeah.
straight to first grade when I think I was 5.
Hmm.
And I had to go to private school the first year because the public school, whatever, something, I don't know exactly what happened, but anyway, I had to go to a private school for that first year.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what I was beside myself. The idea of my parents leaving me in this room with people that I didn't know anything about was
Yeah.
just like so traumatizing to me.
Yeah.
And when you were saying, so I hadn't thought about this in years. And when you said it, I was like thinking, I says, oh God, my first day going to school was, I mean, it was like a horror movie to me because I was like, where are you going? You're leaving me. I don't know these people.
Right.
You know, you're leaving me here, kind of a thing. But
Yeah.
you said something that I wanted to address because I was wondering, for curiosity's sake, is
Hmm.
there a your work that you do in your branding and everything specifically says children's books,
Hmm. Yeah.
but is there a genre of illustrated books for adults?
Yes,
I
but they
don't,
don't call it that.
they don't call it that. Okay.
They don't really call it that. So there is actually a need for illustrated books for adults who, it's funny you would say this because I'm recounting something that my illustrator shared with me. At the time, her father was going through dementia.
Mm,
And because of the dementia, he kept forgetting that she had written or that I had written and she had illustrated this book. So she shares the book with him. She's like, hey, Dad, I wrote this book. And his attention span wasn't interested in most other things, but he gravitated to this story. And part of the reason was because it had images that reminded him of himself.
uh,
So you've got a community of elderly people who aren't necessarily interested in books for the same illustrative purposes as a child,
mm,
but because there is a hearkening to who I once was, picture books have an impact
mm,
on the therapeutic needs for elderly people.
mm, mm,
There's no specific section, however, of picture books for adults labeled as such.
that's right.
But if you are someone who supports the elderly and has an interest in their development, the
Mhm,
ongoing maintenance of their mindfulness
mm,
and
mhm,
their sense of self and well being and their dignity, choosing certain picture books are a great way to engage them and to get them to interact and to remind them of who they are and things
mm,
that they've experienced in life. Now,
mm.
it might not be the same way for adults who are in their 40s, 50s,
Right,
because those picture books, even though they're not picture books per se that are illustrated for the purpose of socialization and developmental aspects,
right,
they are sometimes coffee table books
right,
where you've got printed photographs,
right,
very thoughtfully taken and artistically crafted
right.
into a published work of art.
Mm-hmm,
Those types of books you can find throughout the library and in bookstores
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
in whatever genre they've been created for. So if
Mm-hmm.
you break down the psychology of how bookstores and libraries are laid out, you can't necessarily go into the library and say, "Hey, I'm looking for an adult picture book that has this, this, and this." They're going to send you through a librarian, that is, through what's the book about?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What does it contextually feature?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to lead someone who's an adult to a picture book that may be for adults, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, that was stuff that my father transitioned from Alzheimer's, and I didn't know this. My sister said this to me
Hmm.
that I guess when he was younger, um, he was an artist, but he never knew that about him. He never drew around. We never, ever knew that. I didn't know that.
Uh-huh.
And he but I knew I feel like I got a lot of my desire to be a visual artist from him, not fully understanding where that came from because he never spoke about it, never acknowledged it. But I could see in that I've had several family members, not family members, but friends of mine, well, family members and friends of mine who
Hmm.
have either had a parent or an aunt or a grandparent or someone either develop Alzheimer's and or dementia. And I could see how an illustrated book
Yeah.
would be, because if you're reading, word paragraphs, that could be a lot to, try to process. We don't
Yeah.
know how the brain is functioning as essentially it's dying off
Yeah.
throughout that process. Excuse me, there was a gentleman, I want to say he was in Italy, and his father was an opera singer, and he had advanced dementia. And we were told this, and I also had heard that music
Hmm.
helps a lot with that. So he would take his father to just a parking lot,
Hmm.
and he'd turn on opera, and they would just drive around and around the parking lot, and his dad just came to life. He just
Mm.
started singing. He just his it's like you would never know
Yeah.
what was going on with him. So there's something about the arts that even with the disease as devastating as that is, um, it access is a part of us. When you made me think about it when you said the gentleman that you shared the book with that he started crying.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what made me ask the question. It's like, well, is there a genre for, adults? Um, and that's what inspired the question. So anyway,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So now let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about, obviously, in order to, your brand is around children's book marketing. So we got to
Yes.
talk about marketing. And obviously with marketing, anything you have to have a desirable product. And we've talked about that. But
Yes.
in your work with your clients, is there do they come to you with an idea already that they are married to that they want to develop? Or is there certain guidance that you give them to, I don't want to say impact or influence, but sort of guide, well, that may or may not be a desirable or a marketable. I mean, I think anything is marketable, but you know what I'm trying to go here with this.
Yeah.
What would make an idea like, I don't think that that's going to really work, or that one will work? Is there any criteria that you do or with that?
Well, when people come to me, usually they have an idea for the story that they want to tell already.
Hmm.
This is so common. Somebody says, "Hey, Michaela, I have had this idea for a children's book for years." And they may have a rough draft, they may not. If they don't, well, I help them create it.
Okay.
If they don't have a rough draft and they have no idea what to do with this story, they're in luck because I have a mini course that makes it so that you can create your rough draft in just a few hours.
Wonderful.
You don't have to wait years and years to perfect the idea and toss it around and figure out if it's exactly how you want to say it, when you want to say it, and in what way. So we get through the hardest part, which is simply deciding that you're going to take this story someplace, usually when we go through the rough draft together. Now, for people who have a rough draft already, and sometimes they have the illustrations at least attempted, we begin working together at a different place because they don't know what to do next.
Okay.
They might say, okay, I've worked with someone who helped me bring this story to life, and now I'm stuck. And all of the remaining stages of the publishing process are yet to be completed. So the book might not have professional editing. It might not have formatting yet. It might not even have, for the author, clarity around who the right reader is.
Mhm.
The common misperception is that "Oh, I'm writing a book and my book is for anybody who can read."
Yes.
And that is not at all accurate because the truth of the matter is everybody isn't interested in the story you want to tell.
Mhm.
And so we have to identify who the right readers are,
Mhm.
whether they brought the rough draft or they are moving toward publishing at least. We have to figure out what the right components are of the themes and the concepts in the book to highlight so that they're relatable.
Mhm.
And when we do that, we have to do it with a lens of potential in mind. Like, what's the potential for this story?
Mhm.
If we create this story, what else can go with it? Because for me,
Mhm.
it's never only about the book, it's always about the transformation. It's about the impact that you can have on a reader to extend that experience with the story beyond the pages of the book. So when you finish cover to cover, if you have a children's book completed, wonderful. The next question is, what else do you have?
Mhm.
What else do you want to create? Now, for people who are hobbyists, and I respect it, they just want to tell the story. They might want to check a box. They want to get
Mhm.
through the process to say that they did it, but they don't have an interest in making what they've created as a story a brand or even turning it into a business. So I have to help make that distinction as to what the priority level is because it's okay
Okay.
to take that approach. It's okay to leave a legacy
Mhm.
that you want for your family members to have of a story that you wanted to tell.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Getting it professionally done is still objective for somebody who says, you know what, I did what I said I wanted to do, and that's all I needed to do. But for somebody who says, hey, I was bullied and I want to help
Mhm.
parents and children navigate this issue from the standpoint of how to handle it in ways that I wasn't taught how to handle it, then that person usually has a more vested interest in turning it into a piece of work that's a resource,
Mhm.
that has curriculum, that has supporting activities,
Mhm.
that has complementary products or merchandise that can serve to affirm how you're feeling or what you're experiencing, and that you're not the only one experiencing it.
Mhm.
Somebody who might have a story that this is because I'm a believer.
Mhm.
This can be done so many different ways. I remember meeting a sister who had she blew my mind. She had 6 rough drafts stored on her phone.
Oh, bless her heart.
Yes. And I said to her, well, why exactly have you done anything with these? And she said, well, I didn't know what to do with them next. And so now that you know me, you do know what to do with them now.
Mhm.
But they were all stories that were biblical in nature, but with the spin. And so if for someone who may be interested in socializing the realities of spirituality for a child, taking those stories and making them more relatable to a child of this generation is something that doesn't allow you to just say, all right, I wrote a book, I'm done.
Right, right, right,
You
right.
kind of have to put more intentionality behind it.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I help authors determine what's their signature program going to be, or in other words, we refer to it sometimes as your interactive reader experience, where you're not just looking at what the words are saying, you're looking at how that affects how you perceive yourself or what you anticipate to happen in your own worlds in real life. And when you create that, that's another area of profitability. So you're not beholden only to the book sales, because if we're honest, book sales, honey, the margin on book sales depends on how you print.
Yes.
It depends on whether you print direct or print on demand.
Right.
It depends on what format of the book you're making it available in. What format are you making your story available in?
Hmm.
That's also going to determine your profitability.
Hmm.
And if you're doing it the way that is the most profitable way, which is printing direct through a commercial printer,
Hmm.
and you have a margin that's anywhere between 80 and 90%, you still have to figure out how you're going to make additional revenue if you want this to be a business that fuels your financial objectives.
Yes.
So it depends. The answer, my marketing answer is always it depends.
It depends. Yeah.
But it usually depends on what someone's coming in with. And here's the other thing. Not everyone wants to take a story and build a business around it, and I respect that.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But there are some people who are using a children's book to complement something that they already have going, and
Hmm.
that's okay too.
Hmm.
So if you have a brand that is
Hmm.
the type that supports children and families,
Hmm.
and you want to introduce your consciousness or something that you want children to be aware of, something that you may do to support your existing brand is create a children's book. And that's perfect for somebody who's a professional. First person that comes to mind is because I've just connected with this dental practice on Sunday when I went to the Duluth Fall Festival here in my community.
Hmm.
And the people who were manning the booth are the folks who work for the pediatric dentistry office.
Hmm.
So we're talking, and I don't have a children's book that orients at all around dental hygiene,
Hmm.
but positioning them as an option, writing a children's book to help
Hmm.
promote dental hygiene among families is definitely a conversation that we're going to have. In addition to that, how that can support literacy with the way branding operates, they can promote their practice at the same time that they're promoting literacy, at the same time that they're promoting good health and dental hygiene. So it's a win on three different levels. And how many dental practices can say, we provide for our clients this additional layer of insight that's on their level,
Hmm.
that's intriguing, that's going to keep them top of mind when it comes to scheduling that next appointment. These are all integral parts of pulling your brand forward when you are a business owner. So if
Hmm.
based on your business, it makes sense to create a children's book as a marketing tool, by all means, go for it.
Yes. Now I love that. I love that because this is something that I say constantly. And if you join my community, I have an article about this. I have a specific episode. It's a video that I have um, where I talk about specifically collabing with local businesses.
Mhm.
That's something that I don't care what genre of book you have, but I never thought about that at all until you said it just now for children's books. I never thought about that. That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, everyone's going to be different about what their goals are, what they want. But again, let's keep this in the context of monetization. You want to monetize this. How can you monetize this? Well, that one little piece that you shared right there is a totally different mindset to go from, as opposed to, not that it's bad, but I have a story I want to tell,
Yeah.
to how can I customize the story around a local, in this case, dentist, in this case, pediatric dentist, to be more precise,
Yeah.
that is a very unique marketing vehicle for them because hardly anyone is doing that.
Yeah.
Once you, as the creator, get the skill in knowing how to put that together, as a matter of fact, as I'm sitting here saying this out loud, Michelle, who I'll link in the show notes, has created several child illustrated books around
Hmm.
her passion for animal and no kill shelters and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
She developed a series of wall art, that was displayed in this veterinarian's office. And the proceeds from the sale of that art, that money would go into like a fund of some
Yeah.
sort. So if someone brought their animal in and they didn't have the money
Hmm.
to pay for the medical care, that there was funds set aside
Nice.
to help to take care of that, to offset some of that bill. That's the kind of the out of the box thinking that most authors, I don't care what genre that you're in, only think about the book on Amazon or on the shelf at the bookstore. And that's
Hmm.
the only way to market your book.
Yeah.
And what I want listeners to get out of this conversation is that that is the way that is traditionally taught
Yeah.
and understood. But there is so many, 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 many opportunities out there that if you just apply a little out of if you take nothing from what we're saying right now, take that. That's just one idea. There's so many more that you can do. And to me, as the author creator, which I love to label us that way, identify us as author creators, and around the subject of marketing in particular, is that we have this split. I'm not sure if you have that with your community. I sort of have that with mine. There's a split between I'm the artist or I'm the business owner,
Mm.
and that neither the twain shall meet. It's
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And I always say that the fact that we are artists or author creators makes us the best possible marketer or business person because we don't have to hard sell
Yeah.
something to
We don't.
someone. They can just look at our book and they know whether they want it or not. We don't have to
Yeah.
convince them. We don't have to, do a whole lot of pulling and that kind of thing. They either want it or they don't. And but what happens with a lot of us is that we don't say anything.
Yes. Yes.
We don't
That's.
walk around with our books. And I'll just share this one tip to everyone. This is a writer downer or whatever you want to do with it, but it's so simple you won't forget it. When someone asks you who you are, or what do you do? I was saying this last week to you. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're a dentist. I don't care if you drive Uber. I don't care if you sack groceries. I don't care what you do. Introduce yourself as an author.
Yes.
Once you've got that book done, even if you're an author in process, you're an author in the making, and that's all you have to say,
Hmm.
because it automatically opens the door for the conversation. Oh, what's your book about?
Uh-huh.
Boom. You didn't have to run ads or put flyers on cars or whatever to get people to pay attention to you. You just identify yourself as that. And then those people everyone will ask that question, what's the book about?
Yeah.
And then, of course, once you have your book with you, then you carry it around.
Yeah.
or at least carry a bookmark or a postcard or whatever.
Hmm.
And you show it to people, and they're going to say, "Oh, I want that." So the idea that I'm going to do all this work and I'm going to put this together, I'm going to put it up on Amazon and sort of set it and forget it and hope that, the algorithm favors me to get that generous 30% of the title that
Oh,
you
is that what it
wait
is
90
now?
days to get. They miss the fine print. You have to wait 90 days to get that,
Right, right.
or what have you. Or you're trying to go through the bookstores, no shade about that. But again, like in the case of the story you shared about, or the example you shared about the pediatric dentist,
Yeah,
imagine that the author of that book came in to do a reading with the children from that book while the parents are booking their appointment.
yeah,
It's marketing can be highly creative if you just switch the lens off that you are doing something to someone by trying to sell them something. You don't have to
yeah.
sell them anything. You're not trying to grab people and, like, get this book and here's my Venmo.
Right. You're not
You know,
putting anyone under pressure.
you don't have to do any of that. It sells itself. So I
Some
just think
things
it,
do, but in our case, sometimes you really do have to position it for people because it's not always obvious. Even though in in most cases you cannot say this, but you can't judge a book by its cover. But in this case, you really can.
yeah.
You should be able to at least ascertain from what's on the cover what the story's about. Some things are not always obvious the way I teach book selling. And the reason is because I never could have gone the traditional way. I couldn't teach it, I couldn't get with it. When it was presented to me, when I first published my children's book, I was not pleased with the way any of it was positioned. I didn't. I love Amazon as an Amazon customer. I am a Prime member. I got something delivered 3 days ago. But it's not where I prefer to sell books and put the effort and the initiative into it for a couple reasons. But the primary reason
Mhm.
is because there's not enough margin to make it worthwhile.
Right. Right.
And because children's picture books require a different extent of publishing consideration on the print side,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
have to be able to have confidence that your story will be told as vividly in the
Hmm.
quality that you expect.
Hmm.
And you have to be certain that when you have these different nuances that you want your readers to experience, you're not in violation of Amazon's policies to make it
Right.
possible for people to reach you. So I like being able to take leadership in that customer relationship
Right.
in ways that Amazon just you can get around it every now and again in specific ways, but you can't always. But that's one thing about the traditional that I couldn't ever get with, even though I tried and I gave it a whole good honest effort, and then I pulled all my books out of Amazon seller, and if you go to Amazon to find it today you can on KDP, but I do no work to do that. It's just because people want to see the book on Amazon. The majority of the initiatives that I put behind my children's books and I advocate for and teach my authors to do is through direct sales, either from your website,
Hmm. Hmm.
through wholesaling to bookstores,
Hmm.
and through bulk sales.
Okay.
If it's not through one of those three channels, the likelihood of it being able to fuel your business isn't that great. But then also, if you really want people to receive what it is that exists in you, that you have purposed to bring out,
Hmm.
those are the ways that you're most equipped to do it.
Hmm.
And so, if somebody's everybody has a different angle. So, to some extent, we have to customize for every client that we work with how exactly they're going to have the impact that they want to have.
Hmm. Hmm.
Case in point, I have a client who has a book about adoption
Hmm.
because she's an adoption counselor.
Okay.
So her community of people who she's interested in working through the bulk sales opportunity are people who are social workers and people who have relationships with families who are fostering or adopting children.
Got you.
So for her, the opportunity and the messaging is so distinctly different from my author who is an OBGYN
Hmm.
who has a book to get girls interested in STEM learning concepts.
Okay.
They aren't having the same conversation with the end buyer who has a program, who has a budget,
Hmm.
who wants to support the initiatives that their audience or their community are all rallied around.
Hmm.
So I can't advise them to have the same pitch when it's time to deliver how they want to position themselves for either of their primary bulk buyers and their
Hmm.
decision makers
Hmm.
because they don't have anything in common,
Got it.
which I prefer actually because it's not formulaic entirely. Some parts of it have to be customized. And one thing I said I'm not going to do, I'm not going to publish dozens and dozens and dozens of books because I don't have to.
Hmm.
If every book that I wrote oriented around just something that I was interested in, do you know how many people, Rodney, I would be missing by not writing the children's book that they would be interested in?
Right, 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 right.
So for me, part of the drive behind helping other people bring their books to life and use the marketing strategies that are going to get their books into the hands of the right people is because that reduces the number of books that I myself have to create
Hmm.
to put out into the world. Because I'm never going to tell a story about adoption experiential. I
Hmm.
don't have that.
Hmm.
I'm never going to tell a story about STEM learning because I was a marketing major,
Hmm.
marketing and supply chain MBA. I can't even speak to STEM learning as a girl growing up and loving science. That's about the extent of it. Uh, but there's so many stories that authors I work with tell that empower me to know that God is using me and through my gifts and through my experience and through the interactions to deliver those stories to other people. And that's part of what makes me keep doing this. Because if I tell you there's so many different ways to tell a story, I can tell the story so many different ways with the things that I want. They don't even have to be in books.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's the freedom
I love it.
and the flexibility of having a story for kids. Yeah,
Love it. There's a couple of more marketing things I want to talk about myself and one I want to ask you about.
sure.
So one of the things that I'm extremely like if you work with me, this is like a requirement to work with me, literally. Like I made this from the very beginning. So I come from a long time internet marketing background.
Hmm.
And back in the day, back in the olden days, like what, 25 years ago or longer, there was a thing called, well, then they called it a squeeze page. Now we call
Hmm.
it landing pages, whatever you want to call it. But it's a dedicated page that you have that only is you only can it's not a website, it's a dedicated page that people can go in and put their contact information in to receive something.
Yep.
And for the audience I primarily have served, which has been around, coloring books up until recently, exclusively coloring books up until recently, it was a no-brainer what you would give someone in exchange for an email address, which is sample pages from your forthcoming book.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I always, so I'm giving this more as a tip for listeners,
Hmm.
is to get a dedicated landing page set up well into the process of developing your book idea because one of the more common mistakes that I find, or I shouldn't say mistake, missed opportunity that I find that so many authors, and I don't care what genre you're in, is that they're not procuring that potential buyers list as they're working on their book. So I always say to do that's like number one that you do. The other
Yeah.
reason why you want that, so this to add on to that, we both are very active, and this is a new thing, but this is something that I'm just personally recommending, and I'd like to get your opinion about it too, is I'm recommending checking out Skool. I mean, before I would have said a Facebook group, and for some of you, if you wish to stay with Facebook, there's no problem with that. But I'm all in about Skool. The reason why I'm recommending it is because I've always been this way. I love the idea of having what I'd call an early adopters or like a focus group
Yeah.
of my early adopters who are on my email list, who are in my container that I curate, where I can have conversations with them. I can share with them progress about what I'm working on, and they'll get feedback on, pages or whatever I'm doing, because then that focus group that you're building, those are your first buyers for your book when it's ready for sale, whether it's through an online print on demand printer or you're ordering copies yourself, or dare I say, if you actually are doing the initial print run yourself out of your own pocket, those are
Hmm.
pre-sales that you could be getting to help pay for that,
Absolutely.
that print run. So again, I'm be very, very bullish about that is having some kind of a way to capture contact information and having some kind of a container in which to be able to um, nurture and build relationship with. Plus, I just feel like for us as creators, I love that synergy, that
Yeah.
feedback between us and the potential buyers for our books and our story. And plus, I also believe it gives us ideas about how we can expand
Yeah.
into those additional experiences. So I wanted to add that piece to the conversation. But the thing I want to actually ask you more about, because this is an area I don't know about,
Hmm.
is bulk book sales.
Yes. What about
How does that work? How do you find
it?
those opportunities? How does that come together? Because I know that's
Yeah.
like one of can be licensing and bulk, it can be like the holy grail, but a lot of people
Yes.
don't even know how do I even find someone to buy one
Yeah.
copy, let alone
Oh,
50 or
it
100.
it's actually not that complicated
Hmm.
when you take the noise away.
What does that mean?
So when I say noise, I mean the things that people believe they're supposed to do with their time to promote themselves as an author that aren't actually money-making marketing endeavors.
Hmm.
The things that say, oh, you're supposed to just show up. So you post in places to say, hey, I have a book and you should buy it all the time, to an individual who may purchase that book.
Hmm. Hmm.
That is taught as a thing that you're supposed to do when you have an author, and you're supposed to attempt to keep up with whatever the social media platform is and however many times they say you're supposed to post. That's what I'm referring to as noise, because you see other people do it and you think, therefore, they're doing it, so I should do it too.
Right.
And it's only mildly affirming when you get a like. And when you get somebody who comments who's not interested in actually supporting your book or purchasing your book, but they're like, good for you. That is what I refer to as noise, because it's the things that people say you're supposed to do, but it's like blah, 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 blah.
Hmm.
It's not effective all the time,
Hmm.
especially without a strategy for content
Hmm.
and without a clear direction for the calls to action. So when you take the noise out and you go to who the buyers are,
Hmm. Hmm.
you have the conversation you are looking forward to.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, if we all showed up and we just wanted the pats on the back
Hmm.
that say, good for you. and never went to the people who have actual decision-making power, the same amount of effort could be extended,
Mm-hmm.
but only if it's extended in the right direction is it successful.
Right.
It's not otherwise futile because the visibility is helpful. But if you're not having the conversation that asks, how can we partner together to get this book, these concepts brought to life for your audience? And
Mm-hmm.
you're not having the conversation that says, who might be the right person for me to talk to at your organization about this program that I created that supports the themes in my book? What are we talking about?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not in a place where the people hang out who are in position to choose you for an event that they have already scheduled,
Mm-hmm.
why are we posting? Why are we sharing? Just to say that we showed up, that's not a good enough reason for me.
Right.
So, the first way to figuring out how to manage with bulk is to go to the place where the bulk buyers are.
Right.
After you've identified who they are, you know where they can be found. It's not hard also because bulk doesn't mean the same thing all the time. Now, there is a distinction I want to make because bulk is often misnomered as wholesale. And there's a huge difference. The distinction is that somebody who's going to purchase your books wholesale is someone who wants to purchase your books for a portion of what you paid for them so that they can make a profit by charging whatever is the retail price. That's just generally how wholesale works.
Mm-hmm.
No surprises there. It's either going to be 50-50, 55-45, whatever the split's going to be, 70-30. It's identified up front. They need to make money because they are going through the process of introducing your book, your products to their customers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's different with bulk because bulk is where somebody who wants to purchase your book doesn't have to make a profit off of it at all. They don't need to generate revenue from your book per se because they already have the money. These are the people who want to purchase your books because they are a part of something bigger that they're extending.
Yes. Yes.
And they need to have a budget that allows them to spend a certain amount on all aspects of programming. And one of those aspects may be your book. Another of those aspects may be compensating you for your time. And if you have complementary products that go well with the books, then that should be incorporated in the budget too.
Got
So
it.
they're distinct in that way, where wholesale, they're trying to make money off of the book that you have available because they're going to sell it to someone else. In bulk, they're likely to give that book away. So if
Mm-hmm.
your book is in a package of items that are being prepared for specific attendees,
Mm-hmm.
among the things that are in there, they've paid for your book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They've probably paid for the gift bag.
Mm-hmm.
They've paid for maybe a t-shirt. Maybe they got it from you. If
Mm-hmm.
you are in your crafter era, the way that I am, they got it from you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole opportunity for you to show up without having to nickel and dime people about how much you're going to charge for your book. You're going to charge your fair price that fits their budget. So, in that regard, it doesn't even have to be the same price as it would be on the wholesale side. And this is where selling in bulk becomes a really appealing opportunity because you're not beholden just to one person buying your book at a static point in time. You're
Right.
given the opportunity to have one person make a purchase that's going to put your books in the hands of many other people.
Right.
So if the event is going to draw 300 people and they're saying, okay, well, Michaela, we need 300 of your books. And oh, by the way, we know you make these personalized pencils. Let's include a pack of 12 for each of the people who are participants. Oh, and by the way, we know you also have these tote bags that you use to advocate for literacy,
Mhm.
and you can make those available to us as well. That's a whole package. That's a book, that's a bag, and that's some pencils. And that's in bulk times 300. I'm going to call you. I'm going to email you. I'm going to post in the places where you hang out
Mhm.
with a veracity that promotes my intention and my mission far more enthusiastically
Mhm.
than if I was just going to get that same level of response from the one person who wants to buy the one book. So
Right.
it's just, you choose your hard. It doesn't have to be hard, but you choose your path and you decide how you want to spend your time. And unfortunately, a lot of people who are in our space don't recognize that they have the ability to make the choice because the convenience is what's usually presented to them first. The convenience of going on a platform that's a third party that's
Yeah.
going to print it for you, or the convenience of having to just, check the box and say I posted on social media and I did my duty for the day, whether it results in anything significant or not.
Got it.
So in that way, bulk is its own unique lane, which is why I created the lab to talk specifically about that. Is
Yeah.
inside of the Children's Book Marketing Academy, we go through the publishing. We have resources and materials available for training on how to launch and how to market your books. But ultimately, knowing what I know now, bulk doesn't even mean the same thing to everybody. For example, when I launched the children's book, and remember, I have one book. I'm the person who says I'm putting out one book and I tell the story in a variety of other ways. My first bulk opportunity came through a crowdfunding campaign.
I was talking about that one. I did a podcast episode about a crowdfunding campaign with Josh
Yeah.
Jenney. I'll put that in the show notes. Yes.
That episode was epic, by the way, Rodney. That he's not in the children's book genre, but I took away so many amazing experiential things from him. It had me tempted to crowdfund all over again. But my first bulk sale was from a crowdfunding campaign. And so when people think about bulk, they're thinking, okay, I need to work with one type of organization or one type of way can I create bulk. And that wasn't the experience for me. And this is part of the reason why the traditional never actually worked for me. um, Having the entrance into being a children's book author with bulk fueling the first 2 years of my marketing expenses, printing expenses, publishing expenses. I was like, wait, you want me to sell a book at a time and feel the same way about it? Can't do that. I
Yeah.
couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Um, for another person, bulk might be um, in the context of, okay, so we've got crowdfunding. You've got organizations and events that you might support. You've got programs and events that you can create on your own, where the opportunity is to work with a sponsor
Mhm.
that's going to make the purchase. So the sponsor is purchasing on behalf of the people you plan on having as attendees for your own event.
Mhm. Mhm.
You've got bulk working through schools, groups,
Mhm.
clubs,
Associations.
so many different angles to it. And it's easier to find those people than it is to sift through the hashtags that exist on some platforms where you're just thinking, okay, the right person is going to see it at some point. They
Right.
might or they might not. But
Right.
if you are where they tend to hang out, then you know how to find the job title and the individual, who they work for, what type of organization they're working with.
Mhm.
It's just a whole other game. It's more sales. oriented.
I want to piggyback on this for a minute. It's about recalibrating our lens for what we pay attention to and what we see.
Yes.
I'll share a tidbit with you. I've been working with someone, well, I should say collabing with someone who really started to introduce this idea to me about bulk sales and licensing.
Mm-hmm.
And she did a program recently that I just went through. But again, it took me a minute to get my head around it because the whole what I call onesie twosie sales thing is so it's like it's almost in our bone marrow. We don't know any other way to be other than, than to think that way.
Yeah.
So what you're sharing here is only expanding upon that conversation. But one of the things that when I talk about opening your filter to what you see and to notice, not see, but notice opportunity. So I'll share this one little tidbit with you. So I have a client that developed a book, a beautiful planner
Mm-hmm.
around her son who had passed away a few years ago when he was like only, I think, 17 or 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And when she came to me, she wanted to develop a book. She already written a book, but she wanted to do like a planner type journal. It's more of a journal
Okay.
around the genre, around that particular story. A beautifully illustrated book. And after she published it, we were talking about, ways to move forward with it. And of course, I was talking about, different opportunities, maybe having like a support group with other parents who had lost a child and, working with them that way and just some different types of, opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, she said, to me to have to do that would have to be me having to relive that
Mm-hmm.
over and over
Yes.
again, and I don't want to do that again. So, and I totally respected it. We never really, went into it any further. I had another client who did a book, her first book with me. She's now done 15 books with me around being a caregiver because her
Mm-hmm.
mom had a lengthy battle with Alzheimer's. Once the book was done, she came to me and she said, I lived with that experience for 10 years. I don't want to talk about that anymore.
Yeah.
So, with that said, with um, the client who lost her child, I was looking at something on LinkedIn, just
Mm-hmm.
popped in on LinkedIn, and it was about a woman who it was a USA Today article about a woman who was talking about that there were not enough women in the mortuary space,
Mm-hmm.
that there was predominantly male dominated and that there weren't enough women. And the reason why she was sort of singled out for this article was because the level of attention and care and compassion that she was having as someone was trying to make those arrangements,
Mm-hmm.
where it was sort of a little bit too businessy and too corporate, and someone has lost a loved one, and so they're going through that, but it was still so, I mean, not to say that everyone was like trying to rush you through,
Yeah.
but in that moment, that you're just in this still shock or disbelief of what you're dealing with and then trying to go through that process.
Yeah.
So I remember reading that article, and it was around the same time I was thinking about my other client's book. And I thought to myself, I thought, her book would be such I think, a welcomed offer that this particular mortuary owner could give
Mm-hmm.
to people. Maybe not and they could do anything with it in the moment, but just, to give them to be able to, have that when they were ready to start writing down their feelings and journaling about it and so
Yeah.
forth. And then from that, I realized that there was an association around this genre. And
Yes.
it was around the time I was working with this other colleague of mine, and I started the light bulbs went off, and I went, oh, that's whole other that's a whole other way of thinking about it. And it's what I did a retreat with my group, a virtual retreat with my group in January called Envision. And
Hmm.
the thing I kept saying over and over again, because we hear this so much, oh, you got to think bigger, you got to think bigger. And I never liked that. But I did say, instead of thinking bigger, think different.
Yes,
Think different. There's opportunities all around us.
yes.
But it's sometimes a matter of like click, 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 and and it's kind of like that dial thing where you once you line all the numbers of letters up, it unlocks itself.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that sort of puzzle, if you will.
Hmm.
But it's being attuned to the opportunities. And I feel like to piggyback on what you just were saying, is that if you turn your lens on to start noticing what you notice, it could be so instead of using social media exclusively to do a post with a hashtag, look for opportunities with I'll share this one other story really quick. I just interviewed someone from lulu.com yesterday for my
Hmm.
podcast. How that came together was Lulu had posted a post about using their services to produce travel related products.
Okay.
I created which I'm still in the works on it, but I created a travel planner with Lulu, a full color travel planner,
Hmm.
which I'm now opening up to bulk sales, which we'll talk later. But
Okay.
but anyway, I saw that post on LinkedIn. I saw it on
Hmm.
Facebook, but I saw it on LinkedIn. And they specifically were letting people know that we produce travel related products. I immediately did a comment on that post advocating for the service, posting a graphic of my book
Hmm.
illustrating that I've used this service to produce my book with a link back to my profile, but I didn't
Uh-huh.
stop there.
Okay.
I looked at whoever did the posting within the company, and I got the name of I think it was the PR person. And I emailed them directly and I said, I just noticed your post on LinkedIn about your encouraging travel or travel related people or people who did things around travel using your services to make planners, journals, and books like that.
Yeah.
Then what I did was I got the URL for the post that they shared that had my comment on the post, and I sent that to the PR person.
Nice.
That then opened
Nice.
up the conversation that took about 2 weeks to happen, but I initially pitched to be a guest on their podcast. They
Uh-huh.
came back to me and said, well, we really don't have, we're booked out for the rest of the year, is what they said. So we wouldn't be able to really do anything with you until maybe next year. But I did say I have my own podcast when I sent the pitch.
Hmm.
They in turn then agreed to be a guest on my podcast, which is the
Very
one I did
nice.
yesterday. And the thing that Chelsea said to me on the call, on the podcast, which the episode is live,
Hmm.
by the way, she said, you did everything right to approach us.
Yes. And it takes that type of initiative
Hmm.
to make social media work for you, particularly on LinkedIn, in ways that it is not as likely to happen through other modes of communication on social channels. And when I tell you, I can't say enough positive about what you just did. It's exactly that degree of online networking that's resulted in bulk sales of my children's books, interactions with people who are with organizations and associations that I didn't even know about,
Hmm.
didn't realize existed. And it's so much more worthwhile, I feel, to show up in those places because those are the places where progress is initiated.
Hmm.
it has to be someplace. And for me, my place is LinkedIn. My
Mhm.
place is in email communications. My place is not, no shade to other
Right.
platforms. I use them for different things. But this particular thing I need it for is so unique and it's so adequately equipped for it that
Mhm.
I haven't found the same extent of value from the others in the same way.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
I can talk about the Children's Book Marketing Podcast on Instagram all day
Mhm.
because that's where the authors are.
Mhm.
I often have to share with people how important it is not to commingle certain aspects of your communication because you don't always have the same
Mhm.
person that you want to reach on different platforms. So
Mhm.
if ever I shared on TikTok the types of things that I share
Mhm.
on Instagram, I'm talking to two different people.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Mhm.
have to recognize that people who are on TikTok who are interested in what they can purchase and what they can buy for a child and they're looking for books aren't the same people who found me on Instagram and want to understand how to position their brand so that it doesn't get ignored.
Right.
They don't have the same interest and I can't have the same conversation with them.
Right. Right. It's knowing, it's what I call reading the room.
Yes.
You got to read the room. And
Yes.
I will admit right now that I have been a person who has slept on LinkedIn. I only seriously started paying attention to LinkedIn the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
I've had my
Well,
account for years. I didn't think it was to be, I didn't think it was sexy. I didn't think it was creative. I didn't think, I spent so much, I never got into TikTok, but
yeah.
Instagram, because it's visual,
Yeah.
was kind of like my thing. I hung out, but I've never had a lot of success there either. Facebook is so much noise and so crowded. And other than the fact that I've ran Facebook ads,
Hmm.
which I then kept them in the container of having a Facebook group up until recently. That's the only reason why I was even on Facebook. But LinkedIn was that thing that I just couldn't quite get. It didn't appeal to me. It wasn't, like I
Yeah.
said, it wasn't sexy to me. And then I just kept hearing for the podcast, focus on YouTube
Hmm.
and then focus on LinkedIn. So at the beginning of the year, I chose specifically to focus on these two. So
Yeah.
like this video you're watching on YouTube, I will then do an article iteration of this conversation, and that will go on LinkedIn. But I will say across the board with any platform that you choose to use, if what I shared about how I made that connection with Lulu
Yeah.
is, well, you take anything, I mean, there's plenty of nuggets here, but if you take anything from that, that was the cornerstone of what I teach a lot to my students is if you approach anyone, whether it's a brick and mortar business or an online person, if you approach them from what they want
Hmm.
instead of what you can get,
Yes.
but if you approach them from that perspective, like the thing I always say, how can I make them look better
Yeah.
to their people?
Yeah.
How can I do that? If you focus from that vantage point, will they always say yes? No, they won't. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I said it to Chelsea yesterday. I said, I was so nervous to approach you all because I just felt like, but I've been using your service for years and I've been recommending you for years. And she was just like, she just found that so like endearing because I was just being real. But I
Yeah.
showed that I am an advocate for your product. I
Hmm.
use your product. I recommend your product. I have training in my program around your product.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I came out the blue and I'm doing like a Rolodex search and go, oh, okay, let's just do a DM to them. As I
Yeah.
see so many people on LinkedIn do.
That does happen a lot.
They just send DMs without any context as to why you're contacting me, why I should pay attention to you, what's anything other than I know what you want, which is to get me on a sales call. No
Yeah.
shade about that, but come on. It's like, you know, it's like, give me some reason why I should want to pay attention,
Yes,
to you.
yes. You have to
So,
lead with value.
yeah, lead with value. And
You have to lead with value.
if you do that, I'm actually working on a project that was inspired by what I just experienced that I really want to highly encourage listeners to do. And it's the power of collaborations. What you're seeing right now between us right now is a collaborative effort that
Yeah,
we connected through another platform, Skool, had conversations, and create this opportunity. I can't recommend it enough. I always say too, is that in the world of marketing, you're going to pay one or two ways with sweat or cash,
yes. One of the two.
period. If you don't have the cash, you've got to go with sweat. Now, when I mean sweat, I mean you've got to think, you've got to research, you've got to do your due diligence, you've got to come up with that idea and that plan. And that's where I feel like where the two of us come together in is to
Yeah,
helping you figure out what that is.
yeah.
So, wow. I could go with you for another hour and a half, but I won't do that because I have to listen to the replay of this. But I just want to close it with this. Is there anything that you wish to add to what I've already said and how? And I'm going to have links to everything that you have available in the show notes there. But is there anything in particular you want people to know about right now?
You know, aside from what we were talking about with the importance of LinkedIn and the significance, I think it's necessary to also talk about making sure if you choose to create a children's book, you understand why you want to do it because it's not something that you have to do
Hmm.
unless you already have an existing brand.
Hmm.
It's not something that is going to determine the trajectory of your life unless you want for that to happen.
Hmm.
And so you have to stop for a moment before you decide to go forward with it and say, okay, can I create an ecosystem around this if that's what you
Hmm.
want to do? And it's necessary to find people who can complement what you don't know. I personally am not likely to teach people how to create coloring books or activity books.
Right.
So, how we complement each other so well is that Roddy teaches a variety of different aspects of publishing, and among them, children's books work so well with coloring books and activity books. So, there's a nice synergistic fit.
Hmm.
But find the right coaches and the right support and the right communities to get into so that you can explore before you make any investments in your time and in your efforts to move forward in a direction you're not entirely sure about. Not to say that you need to know everything there is to know, but know enough to
Right.
say intelligently, yes, this is something I want to commit to, and give yourself a timeline that you want to get it done in
Hmm.
and a timeline by which you want to have certain things achieved. And if you don't know what those things are, find somebody who can help you use the creativity to spark that
Hmm.
desire to help you
Hmm.
figure it out more easily. Because when we think about how much time goes by when we put things off and we say, oh, we'll do it next year. Oh, we'll do it. 3 years will go by. 4 years will go by.
Hmm.
5 years will have come and gone, and you might still have that interest. So just
Amen
uncover
to
it.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Amen to that.
definitely want
And
to promote that.
I will say this when you turn, well, for me, it was, I don't know what age it was. I want to say, I guess when I turned 35, I think it was, it seems to jump in blocks of five.
In blocks of five? Let me think about that. It's
So
35.
you look up and you go, okay, I'm 40. Oh, okay, I'm 45. Okay, I'm 50. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Hold on. When did it was
How did we get
35?
here so quickly? So what you're saying is, before my next block of five, I got work to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yes.
exactly. I will say this, whether you're listening to this on, the podcast or you're reading this on LinkedIn or some derivative of this and then go back and listen to this, I would say to anyone listening or reading about this right now is What we're saying today is you're listening to this and or reading this because this is clearly something that is something that's on your heart that you want to do, a way you want to express yourself, and being able to find the right people,
Yeah.
you know, you know, is really important because it's not as many would lead you to believe. It's not as simple as putting something together and throwing it up on a website and waiting for the checks to come in because it just doesn't work that way. You may have the anomaly, but even those who do sell really well on certain platforms, they put a lot of effort into getting traffic over there to that. I'm not going down that road. There's no shade about that, but I'm going to close it with this. Take what you've learned today and ask yourself this question as you're developing your story, developing your book, developing your marketing. How can I think differently? If you keep asking yourself that question, then I believe that the opportunities will appear. But it's about wiring yourself to notice what you notice and then having the mentor support, rather, the one of us, to be able to help you or someone else if we're not, for you, to help you put the pieces together and develop the plan so that when you put in what you effort that you're putting into this beautiful product that you're making, that you're getting something even bigger out of it than they don't get it twisted. The money's great, but when you make it, we want the money, but you want people. I want people to be excited about it, and I want people to enjoy it, like the emotion with the young man that cried. I want
Yeah.
people to feel that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what you feel too with the authors that you work with, and what they want to feel something like, I'm so grateful you made this,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
and
Very well
that's
said.
so. Thank you so much, Micaela, for being with me today. I
Oh
really
my goodness.
appreciate it. Really appreciate it. I always, you just know when you meet certain people, you just kind of know, I think I'm going to know them for a minute.
Yeah.
You're one of those people.
I am so honored that you and I got this opportunity to talk again because people don't know this, but our conversations usually last longer than we schedule them for anyway, because we always get so into what we're sharing, what we're discussing, the ideas go back and forth, the inspiration is there. I'm certain that this will not be the only opportunity that we have to have a conversation like this, but I'm grateful that we got to inspire, hopefully, some of the listeners on your podcast, some of the members of your community and your audience to understand that there's support out here if you need it,
Yeah,
and you can help. We can both help you with that.
yeah. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend you do it alone.
No, it's no
And
fun.
yeah,
And
so
it takes longer.
it takes longer,
And
yes.
it
And you
can cost.
also, you don't know what you don't know.
That's that part.
You don't know
Yeah.
what you don't know. And sometimes one little tip, one little thing can make the difference as to whether or not you take this vision that you have inside of you and develop something that could possibly even further your mission, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, with that being said, I will sign off. Thank you all so much for listening and stay tuned for another episode. I've got some goodies in the works right now. Do join both of our Skool communities. I won't say the titles, the links are all inside of the description. Uh, everything is in, I put very detailed descriptions in there, so the links are all there. Join both. And stay tuned. Like I said, I feel there's going to be, I don't feel, I know there's going to be a collaboration between Micaela and I. We're going to be doing something, I think, together really soon. So, with
Awesome.
that being said, thank you all so much. Take care.
Bye now.